Okay, so that's the ethics assignment. All right. Week 10, week 11. All right, so then you also have presentations. Okay. Now, I remember I did put the announcement to the presentations as a quick little link somewhere on here. I thought it was here. Maybe they moved it. Oh, no. Oh, it's easy to find. Just in the announcements, right? I guess I'll go over that right now. Down here to presentation assignments right there. Okay, and so we're in week 11. So let's see, 2-8, 2, week 10, 12. Oh, you're doing it for week 12. But in week 11. So you'll be in week 11 when you do it, but you'll be doing it for week 12. So the presenters are submitting it on Saturday, this coming Saturday, for week 12. So you're doing week 12 access problem, quiz access, chapter 8, problem 7. Okay. And it looks like we've got Charles. Where else do we have this? We have it right here. So we have Daniel, Lisette, Alejandra, Thema, Amy, and we have it right here. Justin, Connor, Kayla, Nicole, and Michelle. All right, so we should have plenty of views, perspectives on how to do that specific problem. And we give you at least 1 out of 10, 10% of a score. All right. So let's go over to McGraw-Hill and let's look at chapter 8 real quick, and then we'll come back and do chapter 7. We'll go through a couple of the exercises. So chapter 8, long-term assets. Okay, these are going to be mortgages. Oops. Let's come over here. Textbook. All right, let's go to chapter 8. Chapter 7, chapter 8 is what you'll be looking at. Okay, so this is going to be long-term assets, how to record and analyze them, right? So you're going to be mainly looking at plant assets, natural resources, and intangibles. Now, the key on these is going to be what goes into the cost of a plant asset. That's going to be one of the major keys. And then how do you amortize it or depreciate it? So this is going to be amortization of the asset and tangible starting in depreciation for plant assets. Right, so you're going to walk through each of these. Let's see if there's anything of any consequence in here. Oh, there's plenty, I'm sure. So we already know about asset useful lives. Okay, acquisition, disposal. Okay, that's the easy part. The harder part is what's included in the cost, right? And even I get tripped up on this a little bit. I have to go back and remind myself. The cost of a machine, right? Includes the invoice costs minus the discount, plus shipping, assembly, installation, and testing. All right. That's machinery. Buildings might include all sorts of other things. So right here, right? A purchased building cost includes the purchase price, taxes, title fees, and lawyer fees. Right? And also the cost to get it ready for intended use. So repairs or renovations for use. Right? So this will be very important to work through and understand what goes into the cost of a building, because it will be tested, as well as land improvements, right? And then land itself. So understanding the different costs that go into these will be critical as you go through the quizzing and the exam. Gives you some examples of how that works. Okay. And you've got your video here on cost determination. Depreciation is then how you recognize the decrease in value over time of that particular item. Now, some things don't get depreciated, like land, because it doesn't really decrease in value. But like a building does decrease in value over time, at least in terms of its cost. So and you have to repair it and maintain it and stuff like that, which then increases it as long as it increases its overall useful life. So this goes through your factors and your depreciation methods, usually straight line for most of these. Some of them do have a slightly different approach. Okay, so I'll go through that and how that works out. Gives you a depreciation or an amortization schedule. Now, this is very useful to learn how to construct. Okay, and I will help construct this in Wednesday's office hours. We'll go over chapter 8, how to create a depreciation schedule, an amortization schedule, right? And pretty simple, straightforward, but it is helpful to know because when you get into the quizzes or exams, easy to construct, easy then to figure out what the values are to answer the questions. This is a units of production method for depreciation. And then a declining balance method. So a couple different methods for depreciation, what their potential impacts are year over year. Obviously in total, they're the same, but you'll see that depending on the method you choose, it has a different impact to not only the income statement, but what shows up on the balance sheet. Okay, and let's see. Partial year depreciation. This will be important because they will test, if you're halfway through the year, what's the depreciation? If you're halfway through a month, what's the depreciation? Things of that nature. And then change in estimates. And this is important because this goes back to the ethics assignment, which is if you then do something that changes the useful life or changes the net book value, then how do you figure that out? And this right here, net on the book value minus the revised salvage value divided by revised remaining useful life is a very important equation to remember, or to get into practice learning, actually doing. Depreciation, then you have your computations, right? And then additional expenditures, revenue, capital, okay. This walks through what's an ordinary pair versus what's an extraordinary pair, what gets capitalized. All right, and then the disposal. How do you treat the disposal of an asset? What are the entries that are recorded to make that work? So that walks you through all this. Okay, pretty straightforward. And then natural resources and how they're managed. Okay, really comes down to how much is estimated is in the ground, if you will, of, let's say, a certain type of ore, call it silver, gold, let's say we have a million tons worth of gold in the ground, and we're extracting a certain amount every month. Well, that reduces the amount of asset you have because it then turns into a cost of goods and is sold at a revenue, right? So understanding how to allocate the production from the asset is important, and this walks you through that. So you see a zinc mine, you paid for it, has a certain number of tons in this case of zinc, that as you start to build it, extract it, right, you have an accumulated depreciation. That's the amount that comes out, and whether it went to inventory or depletion expense is the question, and it walks you through that process. You also have intangibles. So these could be patents, could be in goodwill, could be a variety of non-tangible assets. So these are called intangible assets. And instead of depreciation, they're amortized. It's basically the same concept, but depreciation is specific to tangible assets and amortization is specific to intangible assets. All right. Same concepts. You have to understand what goes into the cost of these patents or copyrights, franchise and license agreements, trademarks, and trade names, as well as goodwill. Okay, and a couple of others. There's some that are capitalized, some that are not. There's some that have, what the definition, what goes into the cost is different than others. So it's important to understand these different components, right? And then how you amortize it will show up on the next one. And then asset turnovers, these are your ratios. You only have one to remember on here. Okay, I think that's about it. And then you have some practice exercises, right? And these go through this one step at a time. So if you're not going through these, if you're not taking the time to actually practice these concepts, you will find that the quizzes and the exams are near impossible to do. Because you just can't read this. You actually have to walk through the solutions of these a couple of different times in order to get it familiar, get some muscle memory behind it. All right, let's see. So this is one. Exchange and plan assets. I wouldn't worry about this too much. Doesn't come up. And then your cheat sheet, right? Your overall summary view of how these things work. Pretty nice condensed summary of how it works. So if you need something to review as part of your quiz, or even have on the quizzes, you're more than welcome to have these types of material side by side, right? So when I ask you, what's the formula for depreciation, or ask you about depreciation, you can come right to something like this, or this is depletion. You can come to something like this and then see not only how it's figured out, but then what are the journal entries associated with it, right? Same with sale of an asset at book value. Have the journal entry right here. It's pretty straightforward, right? You can look at it and then replicate it for the quiz. Now you can't do that for the exam, so obviously you're gonna have to go through this a couple times and make it muscle memory, but at least for the quizzes, you should be able to use this quick, right, cheat sheet as a way of referencing what needs to be done and then doing it in the quiz. FYI. And then I think that's it. Okay. So that is an overview of chapter 8. Now, if we go back to chapter 7, which I'm sure you'll want a little help on this on the receivable side. Let's see if we can go to let's see, a couple of these examples. Well, you know what? These are going to walk you through them better than I will in a more concise and direct method. So I would recommend that you definitely go back to these. If you have questions about it, we certainly can review it on Wednesday during office hours. Okay. I think that's it. So if you have any questions, give me a holler. Hope you have a great week. Take care. Bye.